the clinking of glasses, the soft hum of conversations, and the polished glow of chandeliers set the stage inside La Bellevue, the most upscale restaurant in the city. It was the kind of place where deals worth millions were signed over wine, where whispers of power lingered longer than the scent of truffle oil, and where every table seemed to hold a story no one dared to tell. But that night, in the middle of the golden laughter and the carefully orchestrated piano music, something happened that froze time, and it all began with a scream that sliced through the air like glass shattering on marble. People turned, forks suspended midair, waiters stopped with silver trays balanced in their hands. In the far corner, near the velvet drapes, a man in his early 50s, the CEO of a billion-dollar corporation, was being dragged from his chair by three strangers. No one knew where they had come from. They blended with the crowd at first, but when they moved like wolves closing in on prey. The first slammed the CEO's chest against the table, spilling red wine across the crisp white cloth like blood. The second pinned his arm behind his back, twisting until a groan of pain escaped his lips. The third reached inside his jacket, and for a chilling moment, no one breathed, afraid of what might emerge. A woman gasped. A waiter dropped a bottle, glass exploding against the tile. People began backing away, chairs scraping, murmurs rising into chaos. Some guests grabbed their phones, others froze like deer in headlights, but not a single soul moved forward. No Onia except one man. He sat alone near the bar, wearing jeans and a plain shirt, almost out of place among the tailored suits and glittering dresses. He wasn't wealthy, wasn't flashy, wasn't supposed to stand out. His calloused hands held a simple glass of water, and his sharp eyes had been scanning the room long before anyone else noticed the danger. He was used to watching. He had lived his life on guard, and in that instant, when others recoiled, he leaned forward. This man wasn't just another guest. He was a single father, a Navy veteran, a man who had spent years in deserts and oceans where the line between life and death could vanish in seconds. His name was Daniel Cole, and though the war had taken pieces of him, his sleep, his peace, his wife who couldn't handle the weight of his scars, it had left him with one unshakable truth: when danger strikes, you don't wait, you act. The CEO choked out a plea as one of the attackers tightened his grip. The third man finally pulled something from his jacket, a blade, its steel catching the chandelier's light. The crowd gasped in unison. Somewhere, someone screamed for help, but no one moved close enough to give it. The CEO's face flushed red, his voice strangled as he struggled. The attackers barked at him in low, threatening tones, words swallowed by panic. And then, 15 seconds later, Daniel was no longer sitting. His chair clattered backward as he surged to his feet, body moving with the instinct of years trained into muscle memory. In 3 long strides he was there, faster than the attackers could register. His hand shot out, clamping down on the wrist holding the knife. He twisted a sharp, precise, brutal. The blade clattered against the floor. Gasps rippled through the room. Before the second attacker could react, Daniel's elbow drove into his ribs with the force of a sledgehammer, sending him sprawling into the table. Plates shattered, food scattered, screams erupted louder now. The third man lunged, but Daniel pivoted, catching him by the collar, dragging him forward and slamming his head into the edge of the table with a sickening crack. It happened in blurs of motion, clean, efficient, devastating. Years of Navy training, years of fighting for survival, years of knowing that hesitation could mean death. It all roared to life in those moments. He wasn't just defending a stranger, he was protecting, as he had always done. Because deep inside, Daniel wasn't only a veteran, he was a father who knew what it meant to fight for someone who couldn't fight for themselves. The knife man scrambled back, clutching his broken wrist. The second attacker tried to rise but doubled over, groaning in pain. The third slumped unconscious against the ruined table. Daniel stood in the center, chest heaving, hands clenched, eyes locked on the threat, waiting for more. But silence fell. Every eye in the restaurant was on him. The music had stopped. The only sounds were the ragged breathing of the CEO, clutching his throat, and the distant wail of sirens someone must have called. The attackers were finished, broken in less than half a minute. Daniel didn't smile, didn't bow, didn't even look around. His eyes softened only when they landed on the CEO, who stared up at him in disbelief, gratitude, and something deeper in fear, maybe, not of Daniel, but of what he had just been saved from. The CEO whispered hoarsely, "Whoa, Broken Bar, who are you?" Daniel simply said, "No one important." And then, before the weight of the moment could trap him, he turned as though to leave. But he couldn't, because standing at the entrance, his wide eyes taking in the chaos, was a boy no older than 10, Daniel's son, Ethan. He had been waiting outside with a book, but the noise had pulled him in, and now, the boy looked at his father not just with awe, but with a trembling kind of fear. Because heroes in stories were one thing, but seeing your father dismantle 3 grown men in seconds, that was something else entirely. And that is where this story truly begins. The restaurant was chaos, but not the kind that lingered with fear. The attackers had been dragged away by security, their groans fading into the distance as the police arrived to collect them. Waiters moved nervously among shattered glass and spilled wine, whispering about what had just unfolded. Guests clutched their pearls and phones, torn between running away and staying long enough to boast later that they had witnessed something extraordinary. But in the center of it all, one man stood quiet, shoulders squared, face unreadably Daniel Cole. Beside him, clutching his arm with trembling fingers, was his son, Ethan. The boy's wide eyes darted from the broken tables to his father's bruised knuckles, then back again. He wanted to ask questions, 1,000 of them, but his lips stayed sealed, as if words themselves had been stolen away by the violence he had just seen. The CEO, still catching his breath, approached carefully. His expensive suit was torn at the shoulder, his cufflink missing, but his pride seemed more wounded than his body. He looked at Daniel like a man stares at a murkily someone who shouldn't exist, yet did. "You Broken Bar, you saved my life," he said, voice low and heavy with shock. "If you hadn't been here." He stopped, swallowing the thought, his hand extended, trembling not from weakness but from raw emotion. "Please, tell me your name." Daniel hesitated. His instinct was always to walk away, to blend back into the silence of his ordinary life.